House of Congress.
Rocco, too.
Rocco, I'm sorry, are there any other birthdays in the room? Right here. Okay,
2 days ago, my wife.
okay, we're going to pick that up. We'll get a list and make sure we get that out to everyone. It is October 2nd, 2022, and we are on day 4, post-recovery. I am so glad to see such a large crowd here today, and I hope more are listening. It's really kind of interesting. I was able to get an aerial chopper flight, and what I did is I took video clips. So I'm going to download those to our IT department so we can figure a way to get those out. So I did cover quite a spectrum of the island, so we'll get those out to you. So again, we are day 4 post-recovery. With that, I am going to turn the meeting over to Dana Souza. Thank you. I just returned time.
Thank you, Mayor Smith, council members, and thank you all for coming. So I know the mayor said it's a meeting, it's a briefing. We're going to give you information today like we have been the last couple of days, and we're going to end the Facebook Live component tonight, and then we'll be here for questions. So after we brief everybody, we'll answer questions, but we're going to shut off our Facebook Live so we can have a discussion. So just as a reminder, tomorrow, Monday, October 3rd at 5:01 p.m. at the Crown Plaza Hotel, Sanibel room, this room, City Council will meet for the final budget hearing for fiscal year 23. Sanibel remains under 24-hour curfew, and we are asking people not to go to the island right now. Fire, police personnel were on the island again all day with the urban search and rescue team. And I'll give you some numbers of people that came off the island in a minute, and they will continue that process tomorrow. So we are ramping down that process. The fire department will begin switching to other tasks tomorrow, which include medical services, emergency medical services for people that are on the island that might need help, and the workers that are there. And the police department will start moving to more of a law enforcement role. The urban search and rescue team will continue their door-to-door inspection of properties, and if there's any people we learn that are in distress, then they'll respond to that. Police continue to find minor issues of theft on the island that occurred yesterday. Today we had a pretty good day, but there were some individuals that were asked to leave the island. Police are conducting field investigations, so interviews, I should say. So if there are people that are walking around on the island in the evening, they will be stopped day or night, asked to return to their dwelling if they can't leave the island, or to ask leave the island. National Guard will be on the island soon. I had hoped that they would be landing on the island today. The latest information is that they will be here on Tuesday. They are in the area, they're ready to be deployed, and they're doing the recon work on Pine Island and Sanibel and the other barrier islands that need their presence for security. We are continuing the process of shuttling residents off the island, so we have personnel that come on the island on the boats, and then we're shuttling residents who are evacuating the island off on the return trips. Yesterday, I didn't have a number, but yesterday approximately 250 people were evacuated from the island. Today, another 150 people were evacuated from the island. We continue to have more good news than bad news. So these people that are coming off the island are in good to fair condition, not injured. I didn't have any reports of injured people being brought off the island, and we have no additional fatalities to report. So when I mention roads are open, just so you know, that means that it's access so a vehicle can get through there. Future trucks, additional push equipment when we get our contractor on the island. So main roads were opened yesterday, as I reported. Today, staff opened 70% of the island's side streets. So essentially all roads from the east end to Rabbit Road have been opened. And when I refer to staff, I mean that includes the city's public work personnel, which we talked about yesterday, or a limited number of people that are just doing a great job, and staff from the Ding Darling staff, and also the urban search and rescue folks are assisting with cutting large debris so it can be moved. I mentioned yesterday, and I'm probably going to keep saying it, some days our operations are hindered because there are lots of nails out on the roadway. And so we're getting flat tires. When our contractors start to access the island, they'll have hard tires, so we hope that we won't experience that as much. So moving on to our utility plant, the Donex plant is functioning. It didn't receive damage that it cannot function, so that is just some great news. And today they started making reclaimed water, with water that's in the transmission lines. It's a very low volume, and it's just going to be provided for the internal operations that they need in order to cycle the water through the plant. And as they've said, I don't understand it because I don't work in that field, but to keep the biology of the plant alive. What's typically a very highly automated system is they have to manipulate and do all the mechanics of that manually. So it's a labor-intensive task right now to weigh how the plant is supposed to operate, and they'll continue to test systems so we can move to that automation. Some of it we'll have to wait for parts to be delivered to us, but they are working hard to do that. In terms of our lift stations, or our transmission system for the utility system, 62 of the lift station control panels of 135 have been inspected. That's an additional 30 since yesterday. Those visual inspections can take about 20 minutes to 30 minutes apiece, and it's really just to take that visual inspection, see what's damaged, if there's been saltwater intrusion in that area. 23 of them appear to be operational, and the rest do have saltwater intrusion. So that's, right now we're at about 63% cannot be saved and will have to be replaced. Staff estimates that in the overall system, about 80% of them will have to be replaced. We have some lift stations that have fixed generators, so they can move our wastewater through the system. All five of them are operable. They didn't have any saltwater damage, so they can be saved. And that's really good news because they're very expensive. LCEC reported to me today that they were at the substation, and they think then the substation is in good shape. They began assessing they continued the assessment of the transmission lines. Now we know, and we've reported already, that most of the poles are broken or down, so it's almost a comprehensive replacement of the poles that will be replaced. They won't be using temporary wooden poles when they start their operation. They'll be moving right into the concrete poles, the permanent structures, so you won't see a duplication of the work, which happens sometimes. And the transmission lines itself, in some areas they were heavily damaged, and in other areas they're okay. So they'll continue that operation. They're ready to have a presence on the island with their vehicles once they have barge access. And concerning barge access, our emergency response contractor, Crowder Gulf, they have moved their barges into the area. There's still some logistics issues, launching points. The Punta Rasa launch area that we hope to use for the barges was tested today by a FWC barge, and they actually moved some of our police vehicles onto the island today. And that will allow the officers that are working there day and night, because we have, as I mentioned yesterday, we have 24-hour police service on the island. We'll be able to use those vehicles as their operational center and get around the island. For island water, really good news. The two wells were running today, and they expect to have 2 wells operational tomorrow. They have 15 total wells. They still have 5 million gallons in the tanks, which is going to provide water to those areas that they opened up today. And today they provided water to the fire department on Palm Ridge Road, and City Hall, Public Works, and the Recreation Center. The reason we asked them to get the water to the Recreation Center is so we can use that as an operational center in the future. The National Guardsmen and women are likely to be stationed in the school area. So if we need to, when we can activate that building, that can be useful for us. The Ding Darling Maintenance Facility also has water, and They have been on the island working citywide with our crews since our return to the island. The structural safety inspection team will be on the island to begin inspections tomorrow. We're also working to understand what inspection services are or can be completed by the urban search and rescue team. So we want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. They have been through some of the islands and they've inspected some of the properties, and we'll get some of that information tomorrow so we can make sure the folks going out doing our inspections aren't duplicated. It's a different software program, but there might be a way that we can take that data that's been collected and transfer it into the county's system and make it useful for our reporting. So yesterday, this is what you're all waiting for, I know it. Yesterday I talked about plans being developed so residents can return to the island in a structured format to remove items from their house, rip out carpets, drywall, whatever needs to be done in a short period of time. We're revisiting our plans to allow residents some more flexibility to get to the island. This could include using their own vessel, hiring someone to transport residents to the island. You could, in our plan that we're working on, you might be able to hire somebody to get you to the island on your own. We're listening to you. I want you to understand that. All of us, we are. I just want to make sure that this is a complex situation that none of us have been through before. We were isolated from our island. So we're working through it. We want to develop a plan that gets residents and business owners to the island sooner rather than later. And I hope to have more information on our plan tomorrow when City Council meets. As I just mentioned, this is a complex operation in an environment that does have many hazards. I've been there. I know some of others have seen a lot of the photos. Other staff have been here. It's hazard laden. And we get that many people back on the island, we want to make sure that you're safe. And if somebody does get hurt, that we can respond to it. So that's some of the complexities that we have to put in place. If somebody does get hurt, how do we get you off the island quickly? I know there's a lot of helicopters out there, so maybe that would be helpful. In my previous comments, I've not mentioned the businesses as much as I should have, and I apologize for that. It's not intentional. It's just that focus has been getting residents off the island who hadn't evacuated, so that's been foremost in our mind. But we understand how important our businesses are to our community. And we want to allow business owners back on the island to remove merchandise, examine their property, take stock of what their tasks are at hand and ahead. So businesses will be included in that plan when we get people to go back to the island. I want to mention, because this is important, the city has ordered some business owners whose property was damaged and was opened and for free access to go to the island and secure their stores. And those are businesses that sell alcohol or had pharmaceuticals that they sell. It was important that we get them to the island, let them do that work. I know there's been some concern that we were favoring some businesses over another. That's not the case. Once our police made an assessment of some of these structures, we said we've got to get them out to the island to secure it, because there were still people wandering around on the island.
Before you close, I have 2 comments.
Yes. I'm going to hand it over to the mayor, and as I started my comments, once the mayor is done, we're going to end the Facebook Live portion of our briefing, and then we'll be here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And real briefly, I know there are a lot of parents that are out there listening. So I was with Dr. Superintendent Bernier yesterday, and I saw Jamie Reed as well. They were choppered in to assess the school. So they have done an assessment of the school. More will be forthcoming. The goal is, and both of them said this to me, is we want to make sure the Sanibel school children can learn together. Wherever they are learning, they will learn together. There is damage out there that has to be addressed. But I think that's really important, because that's an aspect that we haven't been able to speak to before. So I was glad to have that opportunity. And again, we are in day 4. And when I was out there today, it was said to me by many other agencies that were working, they have not seen ever the coordinated effort that has taken place on a barrier island that has no access. They have not seen it anywhere, and they've been through a lot. So really know, in these 4 short days, the tremendous amount of work that has been done on behalf of our community to make sure that
We're not going to close it.
Oh.
So we're going to pivot. We're listening to you. There's people that are on Facebook who are parts of our members of our community who are not here, and we heard them say, or we read them say, hey, what are they? Why are they going to end the questions? So, we won't be able to know what's going on. So I don't want to do that. I wanted to give a briefing, and part of it was selfish, is that I haven't been home. I want to see my wife. I want to see my 11-year-old. So maybe we can limit it to 15 minutes on that are live, and then we can still be here to answer questions. I'm wearing Batman, not because it's for any reason except this is my last T-shirt. Yeah. And I know they didn't want to stand next to me with the one I wore yesterday. So we'll start with questions, and I'll turn the podium. Well, I'll stand here with the mayor, and we can take.
I think you'll probably be answering.
Gentlemen, yes, sir.
I'm Richard from Bank of the Islands, and Jeff and Robbie wanted me to let you all know we will be open at the Edison National Bank branch right across from Bell Tower to allow our customers to come in and cash checks and be able to find out what you need and assist you with anything that's going along that line. So we're a community bank that's here to help you.
Thank you. Okay. Just
comment.
Yeah, great. Gentleman standing in the back.
Justin Walsh, R.S. Walsh Landscaping. Timeline of getting re-entry for businesses. We're looking at, maybe 2 weeks till everything turns to black mold. That's what we're worried about. We got a short period of time for us to get on. I know there's a lot of run-by-gun guys that are coming into the area right now, chopping down trees, doing this and that. But we've got resident passes, we've got, landscape passes. I've got all the commercial stuff to go. Can we get on that island and get our stuff done? We've got barges set up. All we've been doing for the last 3 days is trying to set everything up.
To get on the island.
And I've got a whole fleet. We've got skid steers, everything, and whatever you guys need, we're happy to help. But there's a lot of people that can get on there and save hundreds of thousands of dollars on each building.
Right. So,
How do we
thanks.
address that?
Can we let him answer? Thank you.
So I'm just going to repeat the question. In general, the question was, when are we going to let businesses back on the island so they can start performing services at the property to save them? So
Okay, we're answering the question,
I'm
sir.
answering the question in general, right? Okay, because it's not just one discipline that people want to get back on the island, or one trade. It's many that want to get back on and do the work. And I don't have a good answer for you, but we're going to try to get that plan for you tomorrow. And barge operation is complicated. We don't have a lot of landings. There might be a lot of places on the mainland where we can launch a barge from, but we're going to have barges that are going to be bringing LCEC equipment in, city equipment in, other equipment that needs to be in there. So there has to be a scheduled component to that. So let us work through some of this tomorrow during the day, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have a better answer for you. But we know there's a need to get that, which is why we're pivoting our plan to try to get access to the island faster than what we were talking about yesterday. So good question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
As you can imagine, out in our part of the room, there are lots of stories floating around. Are Sanibel and Captiva in lockstep and following the same protocols, conditions, and rules for allowing the residents to visit?
Well, most of the Captiva residents would have to come through Sanibel, and there's not an opportunity for people to come into Sanibel because there's no place to really land unless they're taking their personal craft out there. So we have talked with the county, and we're all trying to control the same situation, get people off the island so that we can start services. I don't know that the county has started pushing roads. When I talked with the county manager's office 2 days ago, it was likely that they were going to wait till Tuesday. We've cleaned to blind pass. but I don't know what the county has done on their side of the road.
Now, the reason I ask, there was a story going around earlier today, and a lot of people here, I think, may have picked up on it, that the fire chief of Captiva had invited people to return and said it was okay to come back. If you could come back, it was fine.
Safely.
Well, I don't know about that, and I'll check on that, and maybe if we can make a note, and I'll check on that for tomorrow. Okay.
I mean, I was just on
Okay.
Captiva today, and I will say that those roads are immaculate and perfectly cleared out, so it's probably much more accessible than Sanibel is. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Is there any idea how many are yet to be evacuated off the island? Do you guys have a roster that gives you any clue how many people, or are you happy to go by property to property to see if it's inhabited?
So the question was, do we know how many people are left on the island? Are we going property by property to see who's left on the island? And the answer is yes, we have been going property by property. And there have been folks who have wanted to stay on the island, but the resources are really sparse. And they've been getting food and water from the fire department, and they have to change their operations, so they're not going to be able to do that anymore. Right. So many of those people have left the island. In the briefing that I had with Chief Briscoe before we started tonight, they estimated that there might be 20 or so people left on the island. It could be more. We've taken off more people than I thought we were going to. But that we did develop a list at the beginning when we were getting reports that this person stayed at this property during the storm, and we collected that list, but unfortunately there wasn't a good check system when they were coming off the island. So we don't know. So we're hoping that people are reporting to their families. I'm sure they are, that they're safe. Yes, sir.
So first of all, the update that you gave us today is far more aggressive and optimistic than I would bet most of the people in the room thought, and it's truly amazing. I think most of us are probably concerned from a resident standpoint about mold and moisture in our homes, and I know you're working on that, but perhaps would you entertain a citizens committee to help with this? Because I know that there are ways that between having a reentry pass, an ID, checking in a certain place, coordinating with Chief Dalton, I think that we can come up with some creative solutions and take some of the burden off of you of having to do this without our help. I would be happy to serve on that if that's something you would entertain.
I'd love for you to take some of the burden off my back. And unfortunately, an event like this, which is completely catastrophic, is that this takes time. We didn't anticipate we were going to be without the bridge. We thought there was a chance, but we never really believed that we would be without a bridge, right? And we have a process to get people back on the island. And had we had the bridge, then you probably would have been back on the island, been able to clean up your home and take care of things the way that people are in other parts of the community. But that's what's different from Sanibel to other parts of the mainland that have experienced some damage. Pine Island has had some as well. So we need to put together a plan quickly so we can get you on there. Generally, citizen committees take some time. But if you want to give me your email address after, I'm happy to hear your ideas before we start our planning tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
This came up last night, but since you're sort of revisiting the getting people back on the island, friend and neighbor contacted me. She lives in Canada. She's not in a position to get down here. She wants to get her property manager out there to take care of her place. Is there a way that we can integrate that kind of effort into this trip back to the island?
So if a property manager has a contract that existed before the storm, that's the best document to provide to us. Then we know that there's a relationship between the business or the person that wants to enter that property and the property owner. Otherwise, they should have a letter that would be notarized from the property owner that they can bring to the island. And they'd have time now to be able to set those up. Because it's for law enforcement, when people get back on the island, we're still going to be conducting field interviews with people to make sure that and we just talked about this, it's still a work in progress, but if my ID said that I live on the east side of the island and I'm over in Donnax area, they're going to want to know what I'm doing with it. And they have the right to, and that's one of the other ways that we can try to protect other people's property from being people's property from being accessed by folks who don't
And if
belong.
they don't have a contract, you're saying a letter from the property owner would suffice?
It should be notarized. I would prefer, but we're going to work through that. We know that we have some flexibility that we have to accommodate, and we have heard from some out-of-town folks. Gentleman here with the glasses, yes, sir.
Are you open to residents that have experience in roll-on, roll-off barges, been in the company, been in the business for 40 years, and have access to this kind of stuff, doing heavy equipment roll-off or roll-on barges, that I would volunteer my services and have contacts to people throughout Louisiana, Texas, New York, that this is all we do is heavy roll-on and roll-off barges, and do power plants and transformers and things of that nature. I would volunteer my expertise on that. I've been in the business for 40 years.
So we can talk after the meeting, but generally, we can't just take volunteers. So we want to be reimbursed to the extent possible for every penny we spend on this emergency, that FEMA and state allows us to do that. In order for us to do that, we have to follow a process. And long before any storm arrives, City Council has approved a contract with an emergency response contractor, and that's Crowder Gulf, who are on site. So we're trying to process those folks who have other assets that can be helpful to us through Crowder Gulf, so we can get people to work, especially local people who can be helpful through that company.
I'm just offering service and
I understand that.
And if you need
But I'll take,
help,
Holly will take your name after the meeting, okay? Yes, sir.
I think a giant experiment has happened here with the causeway. I don't know if the spoil islands were built to save money by not bridging the elevated piered bridge, but what you're saying here is that if a bridge went continuously from the toll booth to the island, that you would be back on that island a lot faster, and this is manifesting bad planning in the past that has now resolved itself and needs to be known for future planning of any bridging.
Right, thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Along the lines of maybe getting FEMA money, is there a reason why LCEC doesn't want to bury the lines that need to be replaced as opposed to bringing in more concrete poles again?
Well, it's very costly to replace them. It's also very costly to have to go through the operation that we're at now. So I did have a brief conversation with an LCEC representative. They will be at tomorrow's council meeting, so we'll see. You might be able to field questions of them. I'm trying to go to people that haven't spoken yet. The gentleman on the left in the back.
All right, I know you don't want to give preference to any certain contractor, but if, our company can come in, me and my brother, we have 80 people with machinery, with our own barges that are shallow water. We can pretty much get up to anything within 3 feet of water and get off onto the island. We can start that as soon as tomorrow. We can go through our customers' properties on roads you've already cleared, clear those driveways, clear access to the properties so that other contractors coming behind us, dry in structures and start to save these structures in a quicker manner than trying and having conversations about it for another few days, 2 weeks.
Well, that's the work, primarily the work that you talked about, getting on there, start removing debris. That's the work that Crowder Gulf is under contract with us already. So if you have assets that you could put to work quickly, the easiest way for you to do that is through Crowder Gulf. Because they have a contract with us, we have pricing with them already, and they're getting ready to go. The only limitation that they've had is the barges. So we can talk after. Holly can get your name, and we'll pass it along to Crowder Gulf. And I think I have a photo of their business card. I'll happily share that with you. We want you to be at work on the island if you can help us. Yes, sir.
Last night we talked about LCEC.
Yes, sir.
And we said that they were going to be here Monday on their barges and ready to rock. Is that still on schedule?
Well, they're going to come. They don't have their own barge yet, so they have identified it, but it's not en route yet. So they asked me today, what's our schedule for our barge, and would they be able to hitch a ride on that? And we want to get them on the island as quickly possible. Some of the police vehicles that we plan to move as a priority are on the island. We need to get Crowder Gulf on. We need to get some FWC equipment on, and then we can get LCEC.
In addition to, if power were here, I think a lot of this mold situation and stuff would be less of an issue.
Yes.
We get power and electricity and so on and so forth. So,
right.
I mean, the faster we can get that done, the better. Now, the other thing is, I understand that Matt and Shea, who lost their bridge, they made a plan now, and the Corps of Engineers are putting together a program to get that thing fixed. Again, I mean, give yourselves a hug, right? Because you need that, and I understand that, but where are we with the Corps of Engineers? And I know the county, it's their bridge, but you know what, it's our life.
So at today's county's briefing, they said that they were working with the state DOT, who was working on a design build program for the bridge. So FDOT is in progress for that bridge. They did the inspection, the safety inspection on the bridge. I don't know if that's complete yet. And then they're going to move to a design build contract from the state. The Corps has been helping out by doing some sonar survey around the bridge to see where there were water hazards, so the barges could move from the Ponta Rasa boat ramp.
Last thing is the
Yes, sir.
residential thing. The faster you move on that, I mean, what I've experienced trying to get on the island like today, you get on the island 5 hours. And I understand all that, I know that, okay? But the faster you can make that decision and allow those that have boats, have access, have passage certificates and so forth, you know, it takes a lot of heat off.
Yeah. We want to take the heat off.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I
But we also, and we're just ramping down and getting ready to close out the search and rescue operation. We couldn't have anything that would interfere with that. We only have time for a couple more questions. This gentleman.
You may have commented on this in an earlier meeting, but can you tell us about the efforts to tarp over the building roofs that are open to the elements now?
So the Army Corps of Engineers does have a program, the Big Blue Tarp, I think it's something like that, and we just passed that information on to staff today. So we don't have anything in operation for that, but we will continue our investigation so we can get you some information on how to access that. The woman here.
And this may have been asked before, and I apologize, we haven't had internet access to watch the Facebook feed. If your home is, I know ours is unlivable based on what the neighbors have said the water levels were, but if it's deemed unsafe, are we still going to be able to go in and grab things that we didn't grab initially?
And it's a great question. The question was, if their building was, or property was deemed unsafe, will they be able to access? We'll likely have to post that condemned if it's determined to be unsafe, and that we would not recommend that anybody access the building. There are some that are, completely off pilings, and that they can't be accessed. So there is a range of damage, but in that case, ma'am, if it was condemned, then we would not want you, it would be posted, do not enter.
Well, it's ground level, so.
Even if it was ground, and the reason it would be posted, do not enter, is that if you did, then you'd be at risk of further injury. The gentleman with a patient hand there, yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Brad Nickel, Benchmark.
Hey, Brad.
Over the last couple of days, I've lined up a 120-foot barge, 100 carpenters, lumber, everything needed, fuel, 20 equipment operators. Are you telling me I need to turn my barge around because there's another barge here and we can't use mine to get more assets onto the island?
Well, what I'm telling you is that the city for emergency operations has a contractor that's going to do that work for us, and that's been in motion for the last couple of years. That's been the company that's done that.
Even for private residences?
I'm sorry?
You're doing the work for private
No,
residences?
ma'am. That's doing the work for the city, but we're not. We want to get people back on so they can clean up their properties, but then while people are doing that, permitting and other issues have to be resolved as well. So for what you're talking about, Brad, is work that's going to require permitting from our building department before you can really begin. Wait, I'm going to end the meeting because I'm being as transparent as I can with all of you. And so we're trying to answer your questions the best we can. So let's talk offline, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I believe that one of the last meetings you said you were asking the hotel to extend the ability to have the city operations here. Where do you stand on that, or will you be moving somewhere?
We have rooms now through Tuesday at this hotel.
And then?
And then where staff is looking for temporary office space someplace else. City Hall generator is working. They assessed the building. There is minor damage to the building, so we should be able to resume operation. The logistical issue is who gets back and forth to sit to the city. And with most of our residents who will be on this side of the bay, we might have to establish a meeting location on the mainland. Last question.
Is there any ideas about bringing in more staff to help you with the permitting? Because clearly, if that's the process we need to go through,
Yeah.
we need 100 people in permitting department.
Yeah, so we
This
have-
is so complex. Is there a thought of hiring another planning department?
Yeah, and so we have talked about what we're going to need for permitting once we get back into that, but we already have some companies that are under contract with us that could help with that process. How many staff members they have, I don't know. But we're also going to be working on expedited permits for some work that we can expedite so we can get houses buttoned up. But we'll have more on that later. Our building team has really been working on helping to get the structural safety inspection team on the island to do that assessment, and then we can go back to what our
Some permitting can be done online.
Right. That's about, yes, sir, you've been patient. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Okay, well, to go back to the possibility of residents' return, have you come up with a process you can discuss with us or shed light on regarding the formation of a list or a sign-up thing, a protocol for that? That's one part of the question. The second part is, once we are able to get back on the island, will you provide any kind of transportation around the island, depending on where landing this might be?
So those are questions that we have for ourselves, and getting transportation around the island could be difficult. So I can't answer your question and give you more details on what that process. We haven't, our team has been on the island most of the day. So we need to regroup tomorrow morning so we can go over the ideas that we have and develop the plan so we can get you back on as quickly as possible. I wish I could be more specific. We're going to end.
We're ending. With that, we're going to end the Facebook Live. Thank you very much for everybody coming.